Right, so my next little part of this is I'm going to start building the main roof, which is going to go here. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to have to do a couple of things. So first I'm going to have to work out where these walls on the inside actually end. The design of the house basically has a parapet, so it means that these outer walls go all the way to the top, and then the roof itself is kind of sunk inside of it, and it has a slight angle, so it's got some drainage. It's not a very high pitch roof, it's got no gable or anything like that. It is just plain and simply these need lowering, and then the roof will sit inside of it. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to have to kind of change the height of each one of these so that they are only, let me just double check my plan here, 6.7 metres high. So, well, that's 6.7 metres high in total from the ground, which means that the actual, it's actually 3.1 metres. So, helps if I deal with the height instead of the width. So what I'm doing is I'm just shrinking them down so that these become the height of the actual internal walls. Again, I'm reading off the plan to get all these measurements correct. Now, unfortunately, what this means is I'm also going to have to split this wall into two in order to lower this part, but not lower this part. Again, best way to do that is just basically work out how long this wall is in total, copy it, paste it in. Again, 3.1, and then what I need to do is I need to just shrink the length down so that it perfectly matches to there. Now what I'm going to have to do with this one is go into tab, click this outer vertex, and then mesh snap, cursor to selected, tab, object, set origin to 3D cursor, and that's just so that when I shrink this down it comes this way. So I've got 1.25, I think. We'll get that nicely on, won't it? Just got to make sure that this wall 6.9 maybe. 6.95. Just want to make sure that that fits perfectly and there's no overlap. There we go. And now I've got my internal walls to the right height. Now I'm going to create another mesh here of a cube. And now this cube is going to basically form part of the internal of this. It's not going to be a perfect fit at the moment, but I'll fix that a bit later on. So I need my Z height to be 0.4, and this basically serves as the thickness, and it's going to basically just kind of slide this in here. I basically want it to get it to fit just above kind of these roof beams here, the actual ceiling. Let me just hide this wall so that I can just move that slowly into position there. Okay, I don't want this to be perfect, and I don't really need it to be perfect, I just need it to be good enough for now. Let's set that as the origin point. So again, cursor to selected, object, set origin to 3D cursor. So I can put that 0, 0 for now. Now I'm going to expand this out. Just so that I think it needs to cover 8. I just want it to slot in nicely. And then the problem is I'm going to run it this way. Well, the problem with running it this way is you can see it kind of hangs over. Now that's not a bad thing because later on I'm actually going to cut that off. But for now I'm going to leave it where it is. So it's not supposed to be perfect. It's just to give me an idea of where the roof is and the actual height of the, basically where the roof beam is going to start later on. So I can play around and I can delete that later on if I decide to, you know, get rid of it. But I could also use it for other purposes. So I could maybe even keep that solid in and I could cut this part out later on. If I decided to do it that way, I'll go through the process of utilising other polys to cut out basically of another poly. So I'll go through that process if that's how we approach it. Okay, now let me bring that wall back just to make sure everything is good. Great. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide everything just momentarily. I'm going to hide this as well. First floor ceiling. This one here. Need to name that inner middle wall. I just need to pull that into the here. There we go. Just hide that as well with H. Okay. Now I'm ready to start building the cursor to world origin. There we go. Yeah, now I'm going to start building the actual roof itself. So in order to do this, I'm basically going to be building a proper roof beam setup. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mesh. Now, in order to do this one, I'm going to take another cube, and I'm just going to get the appropriate dimensions first. So I've got two roof types. So I've got a smaller roof section that's phrased as a truss 2, and then a larger section which is defined as a truss 1. So the first one, so if I name this truss 1, because this is going to be my larger one, and then I'm going to create a collection. Oh, put that in the wrong place. So my truss 1 has the following dimensions. Now its overall length is 770. No, it's not. It's 7.77. I don't know why I'm putting extra 7s on. And that gives me the overall length. Now, moving on from there, I want to then, now, this is the part that I'm going to have to kind of just check properly, because it looks like they come in kind of long sheets, individual sheets. So I'm just trying to find out the exact size of an individual one of these. Let me just check. Now, it would have been nice if they gave the actual width of each one. That would have been very helpful, but I don't see it here. Just trying to have a good idea of how big each one of these is. It does matter because obviously we have to make sure that it's the right width, the same width basically as the roof itself, so that it covers the whole area. Okay, it's not obvious how big this is, so what I might do for now is I might just kind of set it again 7.7, so just to give me one big area, and then I can shrink it down and cut it up as I go along. Now I need to tab into edit mode, I need to get my corner, I need to mesh, snap, cursor to selected, snap, object, set origin to 3D cursor, just so I can put this at 0, 0 again, just to make life easier. Now, the height of each one of these is 0.6, so the tallest part is 0.6 over on this edge. Now I'm going to tab and I'm going to go into edge select, and I'm going to select this long edge here. I'm going to set it, not how I wanted it, so I want to set the Z to 0, and now I've got the correct angle for the roof developed. Now there's a few other things that I could do, so it's actually kind of lattice, the actual form of it, but for this kind of design that I'm doing, I'm not trying to obsessively get the full design of the roof. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just lay it out like this, and then what I would do later on is I can just texture this to actually get any kind of ridging or anything else that I want into it. So I'm quite happy for now to have just it stay as a empty triangle. And what I can do later on is I can kind of fix I can add textures. Now if I was trying to create a true to life architectural blueprint, I might have to go into a lot more detail. When I was doing that, I'd basically have to, as per the plan, kind of work out where about 2 meters was from this end, and then run a grid along it. But I'm not going to do that. Although I want this to be a good representation, I'm not worried about it being perfectly true to life, because I'm going to gain a lot from actually just texturing later on. Remember, in my final model I'm going to potentially have a lot of these houses, and too much detail will be problematic to say the least. Okay, so there's my main truss one. I'm going to take a copy of it. Just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to call this truss 2. Now this is a smaller one actually, and it's only, let me make sure I've got the right one there. Yeah. This one is only 3.85 long. It's got the same height to it though. And again, I can kind of move this out of the way now just to show you. I've now got 2 basic roof components to this. Right. Now that I've got these sorted and I've got the basic shape, I'm going to rise these up a lot higher now. And then I'm just going to unhide the other parts of the building. And we're getting there, we're getting the general shape perfect now. So this is where I can see if I need to change the size of this a bit more. I've not unhid the ceiling. There we go. So if I don't want to move the ceiling, basically this is going to fit over the ceiling. So I need it to kind of sit there just right. Now you can see it overhangs, and that is not really the right way to do this. So I need to, among other things, kind of reduce this down. and make it more accurate. So now I've got to kind of work out exactly how this fits and sits just about right. I'm also going to shrink it down. Let's see, probably could do as well if moving it over 0.15 and then move it 0.15 again, so it's not embedded inside this, and you can see it fits perfectly inside here. Okay, now I've got to kind of work out how this all fits together based upon the plan. So it's not 100%. So the problem is with someone like myself who can do a 3D model of a building, but what I struggle with sometimes is when I'm looking at a blueprint, working out how these panels will all nicely fit together. So what we have is we have these. Now I'm going to assume that they flow in this direction because this just seems like the logical flow. I'm going to bring this one across as well now. I'm going to lower this in. Let me have a look. So if I say 7.4 is where this currently is at. 7.4. Just check that if that matches up. Okay. And then I'm going to shrink this down quite a bit. Ooh, not that way. Then just kind of manoeuvre this into position. This is the best way to describe what I'm doing here. Now we can see here that there's a tiny bit left, so I just need to nudge that. Yeah, there we go. You can see as well that this is now more or less fitting into this little gap, so I'm going to assume that it's actually a bit wider than that. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it fit perfectly there, because when I'm reading the actual plans, this feels like how it's settled. So that's about where I want it. So it's probably 6.85 in position. Okay. Now what about this little bit here? Well, what's happening here? I'm going to take a duplicate of this big one. I'm going to run it across here, and then 1.1. I need to actually shrink this down quite considerably as well. Basically, I need it to fit there perfectly. Yeah, it's 5.85. But I just need to nudge this until it fills that gap. Now I'm not going to, basically I'm not going to shorten this, because that's not what I think's happening here. If I'm looking at the plans, what I feel is happening here is this is basically going to be cut here. Again, it's something that I need to cut later on, but I'm not going to do that right away because I'm just not in a position to actually do that part. There we go though. But I can hack a bit off later on as I need. Okay, we are getting there. We've now got a roof in position, and we're getting the general shape, the general layout, and you know, all of the key features are there. Now I'm just going to call this truss 1 cut, just so I know that it's this one over here and they're all part of the roof. I'm going to pull this ceiling as well into this roof section, just so I've got a bit of control over it and I can move them together then. Okay. It's coming along. It's actually starting to reach a point where I feel I can start putting some details into it now. But that's how I'm kind of approaching doing a very, low, what's it called now? Kind of a very low pitch roof. Now, I'm reading the plans, and in all honesty, it kind of feels like actually there's 3 of these truss ones in a line, but I'm quite happy to leave it like this at the moment and kind of run it up to that point. I've now got my kind of roof panels, pretty much running to where I expect them to be. It all seems to be where I thought the positions would be. And looking at where we're up to, it definitely feels like I've now done up to the main part of the roof. I think my next thing to do then is basically start cutting into these and basically getting the shapes exactly how they should be, which I'm going to leave for my next video, because then I'll do a very specific video, not just on one particular part of the house, but on a very specific skill, which is basically cutting into polygons and using other polygons to achieve it. So that'll be in my next video. So that's how I've approached doing a roof. As I said, I've followed the blueprint, but admittedly when I've been reading through the blueprints, I've not been 100% certain how certain things have been done, basically leaving me with a couple of sections that maybe aren't perfect. I could think about how to do this roof better, but to the truth be told, it seems like it's the way that the roof is on the house, and as I said, I could put more detail into it, but the more polygons you add to a model, when you've got a lot of these with what I plan on doing, which is replicating this house multiple times, I think the problem is I'm going to end up with I'm going to end up with too many polygons, and I need to reduce the number. So I'm not going to do individual roof beams. That'll be something that I'll add using images later on. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video useful and that you're enjoying seeing my process of how I go about 3D modelling. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll be ready for my next video where I'm going to show you how to kind of cut polygons so that you can get unusual shapes.